Hello everybody and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Welcome home everybody. In today's video, we are going to finally be ranking every single Scream movie in this beautiful, lovely Scream franchise. So there are 7 total films and we're going to stop and rank them from worst to the best in ZakIsCinema's beautiful opinion here. So let's just jump right into the ranking section here of this video. Again, just my opinion. Love to hear other people's different opinions, or if it's the same, let me know that down below here. But without further ado, let's jump into the ranking here, starting in last place, number 7, in my opinion, the worst Scream movie. We got the new one, Scream 7. Now, I have already uploaded 2 different videos basically ranting on this movie. I did not like it at all, and to me, it's easily the worst Scream movie within this franchise. But despite that, there are a couple things that, believe it or not, I do like. I do genuinely like seeing Sydney here much older, with a family, especially seeing how her past trauma is kind of bleeding into her present-day parenting. On paper, Sydney growing up, becoming a mother, trying to move on with her life, protecting her daughter and her kids while still feeling haunted by Woodsboro and the Ghostface killers feels like a very natural progression to pick up with our character here. But I feel like one of my biggest issues was that it never really digs a whole lot deeper. For example, that central conflict with her daughter Tatum feels like it's entirely built on miscommunication here. It's like the most basic version of that kind of trope, and it's frustrating because the conversation that they have at the very end of the movie is a conversation they could have had at any point in this movie. So when you build a whole family drama on miscommunication, or in this example, just characters not talking with each other, it's not that investful, it's not that deep. There's something else they really could have done here. To me, the opening just wasn't all that memorable. It's not bad. To me, it's just a very basic opening to a Scream movie and doesn't really do anything to kind of set itself apart from the 6 other openings that we have already seen here. Ghostface shows up, does exactly what you expect, and he ends up burning down the house, but that really doesn't have any impact on the movie. It doesn't really matter thematically or narratively. It's never explained, never referenced again of what the purpose was or what the impact was supposed to be on the story moving forward. So it just kind of feels like a bunch of jangling keys and member berries right in front of your face to kind of get you in the mood for a Scream movie. But to me, it just rang very, very hollow here. And my biggest issue, my biggest disappointment with this movie, besides the Ghostface reveals, but just how this movie completely forgets what makes Scream Scream. It's easily the least funny entry in this franchise, almost no meaningful meta commentary, and feels like a straightforward slasher with really nothing new to add or to say. For the past year, they've been shouting at the rooftops, letting everybody know that Stu is coming back, but in this movie, he kinda comes back. It's really just a AI and deepfake meta commentary cameo of Stu, but it comes off as the laziest way possible. We're introduced to this iconic character with a random FaceTime call that immediately kills any mystery or tension kind of building into it. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, it's definitely not Stu. If that really is the reveal, that's lame as hell, but it's what everyone was kind of thinking, that this is going to be some AI commentary. But even despite that, that might be a good idea, but they never do anything with it. They later on replace the Ghostface calls with just AI deepfake cameos of past Ghostfaces with Sydney's brother, Mrs. Loomis, and even Dewey gets an AI cameo in here. And the deepest this movie goes is just to let everyone know that AI is bad and can be harmful. It's nothing really deeper or more meaningful than what I just stated. On top of that frustration, the killers here and the reveals are shockingly weak. We get 3 different Ghostface that are all underwritten characters with little to no screen time, no real emotional connection to Sydney or the franchise, and the logic with what they're trying to do really makes no sense. We get Sydney's neighbor, who is in 3 scenes. I saw the movie twice. I counted. Her motivation is wanting to create a new Sydney after feeling betrayed because Sydney didn't show up in Scream 6. It's very undercooked, feels like a first draft kind of thrown out there motivation, and it's just so frustrating because the whole movie, the whole marketing spent its time of, Sydney's coming back. Forget all the bullshit Spyglass did. This was the direction. Okay, we are bringing it back. It's something personal for Sydney. Her story was not done. Just to introduce 3 random Ghostface characters that are in this movie that have a combined screen time of maybe 4 minutes. So it's like, who cares? When I got done watching this movie, I just kind of walked out of the theater feeling empty, not angry, definitely not entertained, just kind of uninspired, which might just be the worst reaction a Scream movie can give, because at the very least, I expect it to be fun, and ZakIsCinema did not have fun with this movie. So easily, to me, number 7, that is where I'm putting Scream number 7. But in my next place, number 6, we got Scream 6. And I promise that all these ranking numbers aren't just going to align with the Scream numbers, but besides that, number 6, we got Scream 6 here. And this definitely isn't a horrible Scream movie. The word that kind of comes to mind is just very forgettable. Nothing like offensive. You still have fun while you're watching it, but again, poor killer reveals, the things that these movies really hinge themselves on. When those aren't good, it's hard to defend the rest of the movie here. And with Scream 6, I'm always happy to see Gail because I'm a huge Friends fan, huge Scream fan, so love Courtney Cox, and she is great in this role, but kind of instantly resetting her back to writing another book about the murders that we just witnessed in the previous movie. I feel like completely undercuts the character growth she was supposed to have, and they continue teasing us throughout this franchise. And especially after the killing of Dewey, you would imagine she would be on set to this bigger and better arc, but that never comes, still never came in Scream 7. Fingers crossed, maybe Scream 8, she starts acting like a different character. And I feel like with this movie, there's just so many like mixed elements to me. For example, the Ghostface shrine, that set piece is so visually striking and a very neat idea, but once you stop to think about it, it kind of stretches the believability of that to an absurd degree. There's no realistic explanation for how somebody collected all of this evidence without anyone from law enforcement ever really noticing and trying to pinpoint where any of this could be. It'd be different if, maybe they just had the mask, but they literally have a whole museum of every single piece of evidence and detail from the entire franchise through 5 movies worth. And it's like, how have you been getting away with this? This doesn't make any sense to me. And another mixed thing here is Sam's hallucinations of Billy Loomis. I feel like that idea was very mixed for me in number 5. In here, it's very mixed for me because I just feel like it starts to lose its impact and feels like it has no real sense of direction to it. And I feel like maybe the idea started off as something psychological, but in this case they go very literal with it. They have very on the nose, kind of cringeworthy dialogue that spells everything out and removes any subtlety to that character arc of Sam or those dark, intrusive internal thoughts that she is dealing with here. I mean, it would have been so much better if it was more of a dark, slow progression, descent into madness, into turning into her father, Billy Loomis. But when you get scenes of Billy staring at her through a reflection saying, when are we going to get back to slicing up motherfuckers, it just kind of takes any subtlety out of what is supposed to be a very interesting idea. It just never fully got there. I think I said in my reviews, I think it would have played much better if they didn't do it so visually and maybe just had a voice in her head with the actor saying the line, so you get that, point at the screen Easter egg moment for the fans, but it would come off a little bit more serious. I think that's how they they should have gone with it. And I think for me, this is the one Scream movie that really stands out to me with my first theatrical watch of this movie, instantly piecing together who the Scream Ghostface killers would be. And I've never done that in a whodunit, let alone a Scream movie, because here the mystery collapses way too early on. Once Dermot Mulroney's character reacts so oddly to his daughter's death and instantly goes and joins the adventure Sam and Tara are on, while not really addressing that he just literally lost his daughter in a horrific accident, and delivers that cringy line of, "You fuck with my family, you die." And the movie just practically gives itself away at that point, especially when he kind of rejoins the group right after that happened, showing that he still wants to be involved and kept up to date with everything. It's just so obvious that he has something to do with it. And throughout the movie, the suspect pool feels so tiny, kills a lot of the attention. You know it's not going to be Gail. You know it's not going to be Kirby. And if it is, that would be disappointing. It's not going to be Sam's boyfriend again, because that would be beyond ridiculous. And it's only leaving the new characters, and then it's Mulroney's character, and then his two kids, which were two of the new characters. So it just never really feels like what the first movie did so well with saying that everybody's a suspect. Here, it just seems like the new characters are the suspects. And the ultimate reveal of them being a family and being related to Richie, just that revenge side doesn't really work for me all that much. It was even flat in Scream 2, but Scream 2 did it better. But then when you get to this, it's like, okay, you're just kind of copying Scream 2, but Richie wasn't like a huge standout in Scream 5, so like, who gives a shit? It just doesn't feel like a strong enough motivation to really justify the buildup that the movie was going for. And again, there's some just absurdity in this movie with Chad surviving a 2 Ghostface killer stab-a-thon on his chest and torso. Never dies. He is stabbed in all these movies and never dies. It just crosses into from disbelief into parody at that point, which really just removed any sense of danger, knowing that really everybody in our main cast of people are going to be just okay. And to me, I never understood why people really like this ending for Sam and Tara. I feel like that just kind of comes off as, no offense, but cope for how Spyglass handled Scream 7. This movie, Scream 5, set up Sam's much darker arc, but leaves her and Tara in the exact same spot and point that Scream 5 did, making it feel just kind of stagnant, like there was a little bit more we were going to do, and then it's never concluded. So I just get a very sour taste in my mouth with this movie here, unfortunately, because my 6th spot here is Scream 6. But let's jump to my number 5 spot. We got Scream 2. Now, I know a lot of people really adore this movie, really love this movie. It's right up there with the original, but to me, this is probably my least rewatched Scream movie besides 2 newest ones. I just never find myself wanting to go back to this one. It feels very repetitive to me of the first one, and I get that that's what they're making a meta commentary on and poking fun at about how slasher sequels typically do that, but kind of up the gore, up the body count. So I get why it's playing out that way. I think it's funny. I think it's clever, but I can't help myself from feeling that I just feel like I'm watching the same movie kind of play out again here. But there are things I like for example, I think the opening is pretty well done here. It doesn't try to shock the audience the same way the first one does, but I like in this one that it instead tries to parody the first one with fully leaning into the Scream's self-awareness angle, and having the introduction of the Stab franchise is one of the best decisions this franchise has ever made. It kind of expands the universe, allows the movie to comment on fandom, obsession, and turning real trauma into entertainment and seeing how people just eat that shit up. And it's so cool seeing how Stab is pretty much just as iconic as Scream is at that point. And I like here how Sydney actually feels effects and impacted and traumatized by the events of the first film. She's set off on this nice progression here where she She is a lot more guarded. She is more hardened. She feels like a character that just went through those events and clearly traumatized in a way that feels earned. So I love that progression for Sydney here. I love Cotton Weary's return. I think it's absolutely brilliant. He's directly tied to the events of the first one, tied to Sydney's trauma, and works as a fantastic red herring and kind of adds that continuity we always look for in franchise films like this, or at least I do. I think Randy has another iconic, amazing sequel rules scene in this movie, just like he did in the first one, and I feel like his death is a very shocking moment because he's not like a main character, but he's like right below it, and I think it leads to one of the most shocking moments in the franchise. It's brutal, sudden, emotionally effective. Absolutely love Randy, and so sad to see him go, even though I think it was the right decision for that movie. And I think my biggest issue beyond the repetitive nature and feeling to this movie is just the killer reveals feel kind of weak to me and just very disappointing. And I just don't really like the third act here. It never has me itching to revisit this, to get to the end of a Scream movie, which I feel like is very important. I feel like Billy Loomis's mother is a strong reveal. I feel like that's very simple, effective. It works emotionally, and it would make sense for this mother that obviously has some issues after leaving her family, but still feeling close to Billy, going on this unhinged tirade of trying to kill Sydney because Sydney killed her son. She's coming from this broken family. Like, you could see where the craziness from Billy Loomis passed down to Billy, and now we're catching up with his mother who's trying to do the same thing. That reveal kind of works for me here, but Mickey is just a big disappointment and completely loses me. I feel like in the third act, his performance kind of goes way too over the top, and like he's trying to do this same version of Stu and Billy in the third act without having the actor's talent here. His motivation feels very thin, and like I said, the sudden shift into a Stu-like persona just kind of feels very forced, and having Billy Loomis's mother just, I think she said, find him on a web page of up-and-coming serial killers and knew she had to get some help with this. Just that feels like a mess and just not a thought out motivation that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, what do you mean an up-and-coming serial killer on an online webpage? I feel like if you're an up-and-coming serial killer, you wouldn't be on what is like a Reddit page. Not a bad movie. I would definitely say from Scream 2 on, I enjoy all of these movies. I forgot to mention that. So definitely a movie that I enjoy, and I'm very happy to say that this franchise really only has two stinkers to me. So with that said, number 5, we got Scream 2. But coming in at number 4, we got the movie Scream 3. Now, I know this movie is very hated in the franchise, and to me, I've never fully understand it. I know it's not some of the best movies in the franchise. I know it's a huge step down from 1, at least. I personally enjoy it more than 2 here, but there's a lot of things here that I enjoy while still acknowledging that it's not a perfect movie. I think the opening is genuinely underrated here and often kind of dismissed or forgotten. I feel like having Cotton show up again with that continuity, and then also killing Cotton Weary immediately signals that this movie is a little bit more personal and legacy focused. And because Cotton isn't this just random victim that is just here for the opening and never going to show up again, he's directly tied to Sydney, her mother, and the entire franchise's origins. So I like that they start off with a pretty big character that everybody knows from the franchise and then instantly kill him off. I feel like it's very similar to the death of Randy in Scream 2, where kind of raises the stakes here. We know it's not going to be just a bunch of random side characters only getting killed. Like, some of the main cast here are in significant danger here. And I absolutely adore Sydney's progression and characterization here. I think it's some of the strongest in the franchise. Seeing her very isolated, living under an alias and working as this female crisis counselor really makes her trauma feel so real, long-lasting, and realistic, other than something she just kind of moved on from. And I feel like that's such a cool, sweet little detail of Sydney helping other women in crisis situations, refusing to face her own past, adds a quite big emotional weight here that I feel like is often overlooked. I also like the majority of the setting in this movie, how it's in Hollywood during the production of Stab 3, while we're also in Scream 3, and it's one of the franchise's smartest meta-commentary choices. It recreated sets of Woodsboro that is super cool, super fun to spend time in, and I feel like that really fits the themes and messages of the Scream franchise here. I love the commentary on studio interference, rewrite, and profit-driven filmmakers. It really feels kind of ahead of its time, also being within its time. And I like the small little detail of the Ghostface killer in here killing the characters in the order they die in the Scream 3 script, but nobody knows what the order is because they keep getting rewrites on the script. I feel like it's just such a funny little nod, funny little jab at studio interference here. And while it doesn't land or work perfectly for me, I kind of like going back to the original Scream movie, expanding on Sydney's mother, Maureen Prescott, from a plot device into more of this emotional presence. I feel like the majority of it works really well. Turning her into the emotional core of the trilogy kind of makes Sydney's trauma feel inherited, bigger, and generational. And it's not perfect, but I kind of like that we get to find out a little bit more about her mother and how her mother's past actions are still haunting Sydney and this family today. And there's a little bit more revealed to it. I kind of like that mystery. My only complaint with that is I wish it was more discovered. The movie spends a lot of time in this mystery, kind of splitting up the team, having everybody do their own investigation, but we really only get this information dumped to us at the end with the killer reveal. So I feel like if that was handled a little bit better, I feel like people would be a little bit more positive on this movie as well. And I like that the killer reveal here with Roman, Sydney's long lost brother here, is just a solo killer. It's a nice switch up from the franchise up until this point here, because you're busy looking for 2 killers. You're like, oh, it's the third one. There's got to be at least 3 killers, but you only got 1. It's a nice subtle misdirection here. But like I said, I think that execution with the killer reveal leans way too heavy into just exposition dump. The mystery is very explained rather than uncovered, which kind of weakens the third act. And I feel like Roman's motivation here, sure, makes him seem psychotic and crazy, but never really makes a whole lot of sense, especially thematically. The abandonment, resentment, and the legacy of that is very emotional, but it feels kind of undercooked, and I just don't understand why he would take this all out on Sydney, because it's more of both of their mother's fault than Sydney's. I mean, I get that he's psychotic and crazy. I always just felt like it might be a little bit more interesting to make him revealed maybe halfway through, and then him trying to manipulate Sydney to join him while also focusing on not getting caught by the police or allowing Sydney to have too much evidence on him. And then Sydney fights back at the third act. I felt like with some time that plot maybe would have worked a little bit better. But to me, I enjoy this movie overall. I'd much rather watch it than Scream 2. It's a nice switch up from the first 2 Scream movies, and I feel like it often gets overlooked. So if you haven't seen Scream 3 in a while, check it out, because ZakIsCinema's got it at number 4 here. But coming in at number 3, we got the movie Scream 5, don't worry, Scream 2022, but also known as just Scream. To me, I feel like I'm a big defender of this movie. Definitely not perfect. We'll get into some of that, but I feel like this one in Scream 4 is really when it started taking Ghostface much more serious, while still leaning into that satirical nature, fun, over-the-top killer that we love, but not forgetting its slasher roots. And I feel like the opening here sets that tone immediately. It's one of the franchise's just strongest openings, and I love that the small little detail of Tara and her inhaler almost becomes this ticking time clock element that adds tension to every scene because you know that is going to come back into place, and it's introduced so early on. I absolutely love seeing Jenna Ortega in horror movies, especially slasher movies. With these movies and then X, I feel like she sells fear in a way that feels so physical and real, especially in this opening scene. Her panic, confusion, and desperation really makes this opening feel less like a set piece and more of just getting thrown into someone's worst nightmare. And I really enjoyed how they let the opening victim here with Jenna Ortega's character survive. I feel like it's a perfect structural change that we have come to know from the Scream franchise. It immediately tells the audience that it's not necessarily beat for beat repeating the formula, but doing some things to at least mix that up. And I like that she becomes part of our main group of characters here. It's a very nice switch up. And I feel like with Scream 5 here, the suspect pool is established very quickly and effectively. Almost every character feels suspicious for a different reason, which keeps the mystery alive. There's plenty of people that it could be, and it just knows how to be a fun slasher whodunit movie, which is very important here. I love the requel and legacy sequel commentary here. I feel like it's sharp and very well integrated. The movie isn't just referencing franchise trends in this case, it's about them directly criticizing and commentating on toxic fandom and nostalgia obsession, which I feel like is a very nice topic, and I feel like it's going to be a good topic for years to come here. Sam's connection to Billy Loomis, I feel like, is very, very interesting. If they did something different visually where it wasn't so on the nose, I feel like I'd love it even more, but I kind of just really enjoyed the idea here of framing it as intrusive thoughts inherited by trauma instead of destiny is just an interesting psychological deeper angle that this movie has going for it. And to me, the killer reveals were not only surprising but work really well for their performances and specific motivations. They feel very chaotic and unhinged and not very theatrical in a good way. Mikey Madison and Jack Quaid here sell the over-the-top performance in a way that feels very disturbingly believable, and the third act violence really shoots up here in the best way possible. Richie's death is easily one of my favorites in the franchise, with just Sam being consumed by her darker tendencies in that moment, but taking it out on someone that deserves it and just stabbing the shit out of Richie is the perfect ultimate revenge for her and us as audience members, but also teases where things were supposed to go in the future here. I think with this movie, the biggest thing that kind of holds it back for me is just Dewey's death. And it's emotionally impactful because I adore Dewey. I hated seeing him die here. The idea works, but the logic doesn't. I have no idea whose idea it was to kill him halfway through in a way that is not him stepping up and being sacrificial for the group's greater needs here. It's just he makes a mistake that he wouldn't have even made in the first Scream movie by going back to the killer when he could have easily shot him from the elevator, and then he just gets stabbed and taken out. And even worse, I feel like it really has no impact on Scream 5. It has no impact on Scream 6, and Jesus Christ, it has zero impact on Scream 7 or Gail's character. So I feel like it was a good idea. They definitely, Lord forgive me, I love Dewey, but they should have done it. I just wish they did it in a different way because I love Scream 5, but every time I think about it, I'm like, but that one thing is holding it back from really being in my top 2 here. But either way, really great movie. If you haven't seen it since theaters, check it out again because ZakIsCinema's got it at his number 3 spot, Scream 5. But coming in at my number 2 spot, we got the movie Scream 4. And I am so happy I had the chance to rewatch this movie. It had been such a long time since I rewatched this one. And again, I feel like is often forgot in the franchise. I am starting to see some more love for Scream 4, and I'm so happy about that because to me, it is such an amazing, solid Scream movie here. And to start off with it, I feel like the Scream opening for this movie is one of the most inventive of the franchise. I love how it kind of layers multiple fake out moments and that idea of a movie within a movie within a movie. And I love how it doesn't just parody Scream, it critiques how franchises just kind of endlessly reboot themselves. And I love how it kind of comes off as this very unique idea that reminds me of an Inception horror short film. That's kind of the idea I imagine Wes Craven was having with this one. And I remember the first time seeing it just being so funny, creative, and inventive. I adore this movie's opening here, and it just sets it off on a perfect note here. And I love where we pick up with a lot of these characters here. For example, Sydney, we pick up with her after more than a decade, and it feels very natural and earned. She is no longer running from her legacy here. She is actively confronting her trauma through writing and doing multiple public appearances. I feel like it's such a nice, natural progression for the character. And this is easily my favorite progression for the character of Dewey. Seeing him as this more serious while having that nerdy charm and being the sheriff of Woodsboro feels like a logical progression for the character, especially after surviving 3 horrific killer incidences here. The movie treats his growth serious instead of just kind of resetting him. And again, I love Gail's arc and progression here where it is more character driven for her. She is restless, unsatisfied, and desperate for relevance now that the Ghostface killings have stopped for a little bit. It doesn't treat her as regressing the character, but with her struggling who she is without Ghostface, which is very interesting and something that I feel like they just kind of forgot in the later Scream movies and more just treated her as this cameo. And like I was mentioning with my Scream 5 thoughts here, this is the movie that really started embracing its slasher roots and where Scream fully commits to being a real slasher movie. The kills are meaner, bloodier, less comedic, which gives this movie just a real nice bite to it. And most importantly, I enjoy the commentary here. The remake commentary is very sharp and timeless. It worked in 2011 when this movie came out, and it easily works now. I love the reveal of Jill here with her obsession with fame, victimhood, and visibility feels even more relevant today than it did in 2011, but again, still very relevant in 2011 here. And I feel like Jill, with being Sydney's niece and family here, being the mastermind of these killings, is one of the franchise's boldest reveals that really work for me. Her motivation of kind of wanting this trauma without actually suffering or experiencing it is deeply disturbing and very unique here. My only issues with this movie really is just how the finale leaves off on a good note, but kind of stumbles and trips and falls its way to the ending note here. Jill is so meticulous with creating this scene here before the police show up, with harming herself in so many outlandish ways that she is fully committed, but I feel like that smart kind of killer angle goes out the window when she only briefly stabs Sydney in a non-lethal spot. Like, I feel like that is the character you have to make sure to kill. I always felt like it would work better if maybe Jill was going through with all this, realized Sydney was alive, was just about to give her that like final blow before the police came in, but then has to play dead, knowing that when she gets to the hospital, she's not done yet. She still has to go through and kill Sydney while selling everybody on this story. I feel like that would have been a little bit more natural than compared to Jill just finding out Sydney is alive. Like, yeah, no shit, you didn't really do much to her compared to everybody else. But despite some of those flaws, I still like where it ends up. The killer reveals are great. The more serious Ghostface killer tone works really well for me. They give you a nice suspect pool here that is a lot of fun, and I feel like it's one of the most ambitious sequels in the franchise, and one that really felt like a different Scream movie while paying respect to the ones that came before it, while still pushing this franchise into a new direction here. So again, I've said this a lot, but if you haven't seen this Scream movie, Scream 4, in quite some time, check it out. It's fantastic. It's ZakIsCinema's number 2 here. But coming in at number 1, guys, what could it be? Oh, geez, I have no idea. Who's kidding who? It's Scream, the original, 1996, I think? Yes, 1996, number 1, Scream. I think it's safe to say this will always be my number 1. It'll be the majority of people's number 1s, and I feel like it's for very good reason. For example, I adore this movie's opening. It's a masterclass of tension and misdirection. I wish I was alive in 1996, where I went to this movie called Scream expecting Drew Barrymore to be one of the final girls or main characters, and then just seeing her get killed 10 minutes into the movie, I could not imagine being in theaters for an amazing moment like that. But it still works now, just being a big fan of these movies. The first time I got to see it, I had nothing spoiled for me, so it was like I was kind of experiencing it back in 1996, and I just adore the movie's opening here. The phone calls are terrifying yet comedic. They're terrifying because they are very intimate in a way. Ghostface isn't just threatening with over-the-top violence, but he's kind of invading somebody's personal space with curiosity, turning that into fear, which is so interesting. And of course here, the script is razor sharp, very original, and just incredibly memorable here. Sydney is instantly compelling as a final girl, one of my favorite final girls of all time. Her trauma is layered and slowly given to us through dialogue, police interviews, and background details rather than just a big exposition dump. The suspect pool is very wide, constantly shifting. There's so many red herrings, and everyone feels so dangerous and no one feels fully cleared, which keeps the mystery alive throughout its runtime. They do a great job of addressing the red herrings, finding reasons to cover those up and make you look somewhere else, like they do with Billy getting cleared by the police officers within 30 minutes. Billy also covers for Stu covers for Billy, and having that double killer reveal can lead to so much amazing misdirection, especially for this movie, especially for this time when you're not going in expecting 2 killers here. There's so much they could play around with, and there's so much Wes Craven did play around with. We, of course, get the beautiful introduction of Dewey. His awkward sincerity here balances the film's kind of cynicism, and Randy here is another huge standout as he acts as that audience surrogate without ever really breaking the immersion. He is that audience character screaming at the TV, and like I was just hinting at, the double killer reveal is still unmatched. Again, I wish I was there opening day just to kind of see that play out. It retroactively explains every inconsistency and makes the mystery impossible to solve on first watch, especially if you're just going in expecting one killer. Billy and Stu's motivations are perfect. They're personal, they're petty, they're cruel, which makes them far more disturbing than you'd ever really anticipate. And that third act is fucking iconic. Let's be real. Billy and Stu's performance, the way they balance this over-the-top energy while feeling so evil and unhinged is perfect. The whole third act is chaotic, bloody, funny, and tense all at once. It's the blueprint the rest of these Scream movies have been trying to follow, trying to chase, but never quite getting there. A couple of them have been very close, but this first one is obviously unmatched. I love Scream. I said it in my review. I think this is my go-to comfort rewatchability horror movie. If I'm in a bad mood, I could turn on Scream. If I'm sad and crying, I could turn on Scream. If I'm happy, I could turn on Scream. If I just want a background movie, I could turn on Scream. If I want to sit down and watch a movie, I could turn on Scream. It is one of the most perfect movies, at least for me here. So easily number one, we got the original. But oh my god, guys, that was kind of exhausting. This is a longer video. I apologize for that. I hope you guys enjoyed it here. But as always, you have my thoughts here, ranking the Scream franchise from my least favorite all the way to my favorite. But of course, down below, I adore hearing different opinions. So please let me know your ranking and the reasons why down below here. But look forward to a couple more ranking videos. We're not done talking about Scream just yet. So hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I appreciate anybody watching my videos. It means the world to me. So thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.